I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell blamed President Biden for surging violent crime on the Senate floor Wednesday. The Kentucky senator's remarks come after he said he met with law enforcement officials from his state last month. McConnell claimed that the Biden administration has a long way to go to prove that they support law enforcement. Let's listen in for more.
Republican leader.
The week before last, it was my honor to sit down with a number of law enforcement officials in my hometown of Louisville. But I wish we could have met under happier circumstances. Our city is contending with a tragic and record-setting jump in crime. Last year, Louisville saw 188 homicides, the most in any year on record. In the last 2 years, carjackings have tripled, and deadly drugs are becoming so prevalent on our streets. Jefferson County saw 500 overdose deaths in 2021. Unfortunately, the historic wave of crime that has swept my hometown is challenging communities all across America. The murder rates of at least a dozen other major cities set all-time records last year. Chicago saw its most carjackings in 20 years. And in the first quarter of 2022, New York's crime rate is already up, listen to this, 44%. Needless to say, this is a time for strong law enforcement. Studies show that fewer police and less active policing makes crime worse and leaves the most vulnerable communities particularly worse off. But our nation's police officers aren't just facing higher volumes of crime, they're facing more direct personal risk to confront it. Last year, as overall homicide counts continued to climb past 2020's record total, killings of police officers saw a staggering 59% spike of their own. 73 men and women sworn to protect and serve their communities were killed in 2021 while trying to do exactly that. And already 2022 has seen more than 100 more officers shot in the line of duty. The surge in adding police violence that boiled over in the summer of 2020 has taken its toll on the men and women of law enforcement. An exhaustive report compiled by the city of Louisville last year found that morale among our officers is alarmingly low. A full 75% would leave for another police department. Not surprisingly, this has led to a severe staffing shortage on the force. Our police chief even took out billboard ads in Atlanta, to try to recruit officers from other cities. Now more than ever, we need to fund law enforcement, support police officers, and back the blue. But too many Democrats are apparently bent on doing just the opposite. The far left's call to defund the police has taken root at every level of government. Elected officials, sworn to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, have chosen instead to amplify distrust of the men and women who work every day to enforce our laws. So let's just consider who the Biden administration has prioritized for confirmation to top jobs in the Justice Department. There's the new U.S. attorney with a reputation for pushing to cancel entire categories of the criminal code, and the assistant attorneys general who have advocated for efforts to, quote, decrease police budgets, end quote, and invest less in police. There's the newly minted Supreme Court justice who advocated in her last job that the COVID pandemic was an appropriate reason to let inmates out of jail right here in Washington. And just last week, our colleagues on the Judiciary Committee considered a nominee to the Circuit Court with an unapologetic record of hostility toward law enforcement. Without any basis in fact, Nusrat Khojouri suggested that police murdering unarmed black men, quote, happens every day. Happens every day. When our colleague, the junior senator from Louisiana, called her out on it, the nominee tried to claim that she has only made the statement as an act of rhetorical advocacy on behalf of a client. Unsurprisingly, that answer hasn't done much to ease the concerns of America's law enforcement community. Major organizations representing officers, from the Sergeants Benevolent Association to the National Sheriff's Association to the Fraternal Order of Police, have voiced strong opposition and called on President Biden to, quote, take a stand against this dangerous and absurdly divisive rhetoric. Well, needless to say, the President and his administration need to do a lot more than that to prove to the men and women of law enforcement that they have their backs. Now, on another matter, last week President Biden offered a particularly candid look at his view of education in America. Speaking at an award ceremony for public school teachers, he remarked that, quote, they're not somebody else's children, they're like yours when they're in the classroom. Unfortunately, this wasn't a mistake. It was actually a rather accurate summary of the increasingly radical way he and his party think of children in America. When it comes to the respective roles of parents and teachers, Democrats have used the past 2 years of the pandemic disruptions to show their true colors. They've shoveled money into woke training, like the North Carolina program to help preschool teachers deconstruct whiteness. They've torn up time-tested procedures, as in one California district moved to institute an equity lottery for admissions. And last fall, the former chair of the Democratic National Committee ran a gubernatorial campaign saying, quote, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. Well, suffice it to say, parents in Virginia saw things differently. Across America, parents have rejected the radical liberal campaign to make education a one-size-fits-all, government-knows-best proposition. From coast to coast, even in deep blue bastions like San Francisco, they've sent rogue local administrators packing and asserted their rights and responsibilities as the first and most important teachers of their children. Yesterday, Senate Republicans made clear once again that we stand with the parents of America. A bipartisan majority adopted Senator Thune's resolution of disapproval on one of the Biden administration's most egregious violations of parents' rights and kids' well-being. Masking children as young as 2 in Head Start programs across the country, including outside on the playground, flies in the face of what even the World Health Organization considers settled science. And it seriously damaged parents' confidence in the systems in which they entrust their children for hours every day. So I was proud to join a majority of my colleagues last night to express the Senate's opposition to this unconscionable policy. But make no mistake, this is not the last we'll hear about the far left's efforts to grab more control over how America raises its kids. As we speak, Senate Democrats are trying to resurrect portions of the failed reckless taxing and spending spree they spent most of last year trying to ram through on party lines. That proposal includes the toddler takeover that would stick American families with dramatically higher costs and dramatically less choice in the market for child care. More red tape for independent providers, special subsidies for bureaucracy's preferred one-size-fits-all systems, outright hostility toward the faith-based options that are preferred by a majority of families who use outside-the-home child care, and nothing at all for families who choose to have a full-time parent or another family member look after their kids. Just the latest example of a massive overreach the American people never asked for. The Biden administration is having a hard enough time with basic governing responsibilities like national security, energy independence, and controlling inflation. American families, and especially children, will be a whole lot better off the sooner the Democrats stop looking for even more ways to fail them.
Colleges. In Maryland, our state HBCUs and community colleges play a key role in entrepreneurial ecosystem. They are resource partners for the SBA. They host business incubators and accelerators, and they leverage their relationship with the underserved communities to lift up the entrepreneurs in those communities. We need to do the same on a national scale and support our resource partners. These are common sense policies that will unlock the growth potential of our nation's entrepreneurs and help us to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic in a stronger, fairer way. So as we celebrate National Small Business Week, let us also double down on the investments we have made in our entrepreneurs over the past 2 years. Let us once again put partisanship aside to pass thoughtful legislation that addresses the root causes of the issues our nation's entrepreneurs face on a daily basis. We can do this. During this week, let us rededicate ourselves to help America's small businesses, help fairness and opportunity in this country, and help our economy grow even stronger. With that, Mr. President, I would suggest the absence of a quorum.